All right, good morning. There's still some folks that have come in a little bit late and they're grabbing some food, but we need to get started. I want to honor your time. So welcome to our leadership breakfast. This is our first one of the semester. We will have 3 more this semester. Our next one is February 12th, if you want to make a note of that. And then I have 2 other things. See, I've got a captured audience, so I have to do my advertising, right? Is that fair? Yeah. We have a leader-to-leader conference coming to campus on March 9th and 10th, and you're all invited to attend. The brochure is on the table. There are 4 keynote speakers coming. I was talking to somebody this morning. One of them is John McHugh from Quick Trip. He'll be speaking in the morning. Adre Groneweg, the president founder of Pizza Ranch, is speaking at lunchtime, and I'm really excited about Rob McKenna, an industrial psychologist out of Washington, whose expertise with the Fortune 500 is developing leaders within your business. So we're going to have some fun. In the meantime, we'll have 15 workshops during the day, lots of opportunities for you. We have 14 business professionals and leaders coming to speak on campus those 2 days. So there is a brochure available. There's a QR code that you can scan. We'll get you to the website so that you can register. If you register by next Tuesday, you save $25 on the fee. So we'd encourage you to do that. And then the second thing, Tiffany would shoot me if I don't talk about our golf classic, and there's brochures for that on the table. That is coming June the 12th. I keep looking outside thinking about golf. Yes, right? You're all thinking about spring and summer already. And we haven't had the cold yet. And let's hope we don't. I don't care. I live in Wisconsin. I still don't like cold weather. June the 12th, Monday this year, instead of a Friday, and it'll be at 10 o'clock in the morning instead of our normal 9 o'clock, so that you have an opportunity to get there, June the 12th. All right, we have a great program for you this morning. We have 4 speakers for you. Emily McFarland is the mayor of Watertown. She's been mayor for 4 years now, I think. And you're finishing your 4th year, yeah. She's doing an okay job. She's doing well. We're glad to have her. Tina Crave is the CEO of the Greater Watertown Health Foundation. I forgot something in there. And she'll be speaking this morning. John Lang is the CEO of the YMCA. And then my favorite speaker today is Dr. Matt Davis, the CEO of Maranatha Baptist University, also known as my boss. So we're glad that he's here as well, all right? We want to talk about childcare today, something that I think is very important for all of us that we need to know about. And I'm not going to go any further than that. We'll have Emily come up after I pray, and we'll get started. So let's pray. Father, it's a wonderful day, a great day for us to get together. We have a great crowd, and we're so thankful for that. Father, we're thankful for you and for all you provide for us. Father, especially our salvation through our Savior, Jesus Christ. And I pray that everybody in this room might have that personal relationship with him. Thank you, Father, for our great city, for this place that we can partner with and enjoy our time with. We just pray today as we think about childcare that you might open our eyes to some of the needs. Father, you might guide and direct if we should be involved and how we do that. And we will give you all the praise for it. In Christ's name, amen. Mayor, if you would. And it works.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Emily McFarland, the OK Mayor of the City of Watertown. It's a pleasure to be here today. See how it is. I thought, at least Mr. Herbster's here. He always reminds me how nice the community is and how well we're doing. You guys, honestly, it is so amazing to be here this morning. I had to look for a parking spot when I arrived. And I said to my colleagues right away, a couple of years ago, I don't know that we would have had this many people thinking and talking about childcare. And it's uplifting for me because a few years ago, before I had this job, I worked at the Department of Children and Families. We have a representative here this morning, so thank you so much for coming. And I talked a whole lot about childcare. And I knew coming into this job that the city of Watertown was a childcare desert. But if you fast forward, I was doing one of my first business visits at Spuncast, which is a foundry, for those of you that may not know. And I sat in the boardroom and asked the question I always ask, and that is, what can the city do for you? And one of the first things that the president said back to me was, we need childcare. And that was 2019. And I was excited. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I know there's a problem. He knows there's a problem. And also terrifying because that was 2019. This is 2023. And here we are after many years and much time spent studying and looking at models, ready to present to you all what we think will be a solution for Watertown, and one that we hope is replicable throughout the country, the state, and the other communities. Because of the work that we've done, I am thankful, and I know I have a couple of older people in the room this morning to share with all of you, if you haven't heard already, that the city has invested $400,000 of our American Rescue Plan Act funds to supporting the model that you're going to hear today. And our county partners have donated some of their money as well, although not as much, so we'll remember that. I guess we can now put it as Matt Davis, me, then the county administrators. Okay, got it. You're welcome. You know how I feel. But in all honesty, I don't even know that a couple of years ago we would have had any capacity to invest local dollars into childcare. And that means that not just our leaders, but our county boards and our city councils agree that this is a topic that we need to talk about. So today we are hoping to explain a few things to you all. And we are hoping that you'll be able to understand and come to learn kind of the root causes and barriers that we have with getting access to affordable care. We're going to look at how the lack of childcare is impacting all of you, and hopefully some of you will have some stories to share. And we are going to talk about emerging promising practices and what we've learned from those and the shaping of the model you'll hear about today. And then we're going to invite all of you to participate with us in some way, whether it's through advocacy or prayer or participation of your resources to bring this model to life. And if you don't know, this is why it matters. So on the slide behind me, you're going to see what the value of quality early care is. And without looking at each of those, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. There is a correlation between access to high quality care and your capacity to perform in school and to stay in school, your capacity to graduate, your median home value, your workforce participation, the amount of money that you're likely to make, and so many other things. So I hope it goes without saying that we've identified that this is not just a social issue, but an economic issue. And that's why the city has pushed all in on investing. We're acknowledging that this is about workforce preparedness, workforce availability, and economic development. So you're going to hear a lot more data and information that I can guarantee you is going to be compelling. So please, I would invite Tina Crave to join us. Thank you.
Good morning. Is this on? Yeah. So before we can tackle a problem, we really need to understand the root causes behind it. And so that's what I want to do today, is just provide an overview of what are some of the factors that are causing this shortage of childcare. And in essence, our current childcare systems aren't working for anyone in the system. They're not working for parents and children. As employers have learned over the past few years, they're not working for employers. And what might surprise you, the current systems really aren't working for the businesses that provide childcare. So we're going to start with a slide that looks at our workforce shortage. Most of you, if you have a help wanted sign out, you know it's incredibly difficult to find help right now. Why is that? Well, one, we have some demographic changes. We have a lot of baby boomers that are aging out and retiring. But on top of that, when we look at the percentage of working age adults who are working, we've had significant decreases in both counties. So Dodge County, the percentage of folks that are working has decreased by about 8% in the past 20 years. Jefferson County had a nice uptick in 2010, but it's gone down about 8% since then. So one of the reasons people aren't actively engaged in the workforce is they're not able to find childcare that's affordable. So Emily mentioned that we're a childcare desert. What that officially means is that we have less than one childcare slot for every 3 children living in our community. So Dodge and Jefferson County both have about 5,000 children. We have about 1,500 childcare slots in each county, which leaves us a significant gap. So why is that? This graph charts the trend in the number of childcare slots over time. In the past 10 years, Dodge County has lost 20% of its childcare slots. Since the pandemic started in January of 2020, across Dodge and Jefferson County, we've lost an additional 128 slots. The current systems are not working for our providers, and they're closing their doors. A report just came out within the last week telling us that the staff that are running and working in childcare centers, many of them are of baby boomer age, and a significant number are looking to leave the workforce in the next few years. So how about parents? In the summer of 2020, we did a survey of Dodge and Jefferson County parents. We simply posted a link on social media and had more than 700 responses. So this was a topic of importance to our parents. 72% of parents have said they've missed work. A good half are distracted at work because they're worrying about childcare. 45% have turned down overtime. And alarmingly, 17%, someone in their family left the workforce because it didn't pay for that parent to work. How many parents and grandparents in the room? Lots of them. So if the business case for having more childcare isn't enough, as Emily shared, we know that children that have access to high quality early care have significant better life and occupational outcomes. Our Every Child Thrives partners across the 2 counties do something called developmental screening for our 4-year-olds as they're getting ready to come into kindergarten. And what we know is that only about 62% of our 4-year-olds are developmentally where they should be. Scientists can tell us they can take a kindergartner and they can assess their social skills, their communication skills, and they can predict their lifelong success. So when kids can't access high quality care, it impacts their development. And this is our future workforce. So over the past couple of decades, childcare is simply paid for. Parents pay what they can, and then the childcare business needs to figure out how to operate on that. And on average, our families are paying about $11,000 a year per child. If you have 2 children, you have 3 children, you multiply that. It's amounting in our counties to about 19% of their annual income is going towards childcare. Federal recommendations are that really a family shouldn't have to spend more than 7% of its income on childcare to have enough money left to pay for health care, food, housing, and all of that. So local childcare is simply too expensive for families. But the real news is some research that came out within the last year that says, okay, our parents are currently paying $11,000 a year for childcare. What does it actually cost to provide high quality childcare? And it became very clear that there's a significant gap. So the actual cost of caring for an infant is $16,000 to $28,000 a year. So you can see how when our child care providers are trying to operate on what the parents can afford, it's a business model that's not sustainable. So when childcare providers are forced to operate on the little bit that we parents can afford, what are the consequences of that? And the consequences of that is that the wages they can pay are very low. So the average wage for early care and education workers in our community is somewhere between $11 and $13 an hour. 34% of our workers are enrolled in public supports, so Badger Care, that sort of thing. 14% use food share. And we can drive down the street and see, any retail or service industry in our community has signs out saying that they're paying $15, $18 an hour. Why would our young people elect to go into the profession of early care and education if the benefits don't even sustain your family? So we have a short video that's going to describe that challenge. This video is a few years old, so some of the numbers are going to be a little out of dated, but it does a really nice job of summarizing, why is this business model broken for families, for employers, and for the providers. All right, we're going to skip it. It summarizes what I said. Again, the business model just doesn't work. We need a system where we can provide quality early care and education for our youngest residents with resources that go beyond just what the parents can afford. So I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Davis, who's going to share, what does this look like from a child care provider's perspective in our community. Maranatha has one of our longest standing child care centers in Kitty Campus, and thank you for sharing your story with us.
Melissa Chapman is our outstanding director for Kitty Campus, and I am not her. And so I will do my best to, she's incredible working with children. She does not like to talk in front of big people. That's what she said. And so I agreed to do that. And then today she's a little under the weather. So if you pray for her and for whatever in the world's going on at Kitty Campus when she's not there, because I really can't vouch for that. Melissa is a master teacher, and she came into the director role after many years in education, Christian education at the K-12 level, and then preschool. And she has done a masterful job as a director at Kitty Campus, keeping costs under control, taking care of her teachers and assistants and just the army of people that you need to run a center, and of course taking good care of the young people, the children. And she is like the baby whisperer, I mean, people bring their misbehaving children to her, and she just says a few words, and they're immediately incredibly obedient, all right? And so I am in awe of her skills, and she just loves the children and does a wonderful job. Kitty Campus was started by Maranatha Baptist University, Maranatha Baptist Bible College at the time, in 2000, specifically as a community outreach. And some have the mistaken belief that Maranatha started Kitty Campus for our employees as a benefit. We really did not. We only have, as far as I know, we only have 2 employees whose children are actually enrolled at Kitty Campus. And instead, it's actually something that we developed as an outreach to the community in response to the needs that were obvious here in Watertown and the surrounding area. We also have an early childhood education program in our School of Education, and so that works very well for our students in that program to gain real-world experience working in a very high-quality center like Kitty Campus. And so it's a good relationship. It's symbiotic in many ways, and it also, just so you understand the economic side, Kitty Campus loses a significant amount of money every year. And so as the CEO, I can promise you, and John's here, and we have been talking over the last few months about the advantage that we both have as large institutions that exist that also do a child care center. And we've both remarked, I don't know how anyone would be expected to operate a child care center standalone, independent, without that kind of support. Kitty Campus doesn't pay rent, doesn't pay for its groundskeeping, its maintenance, its utilities, or insurance, or education benefits. All of those are provided by Maranatha, and they only, on their budget, have to take care of the variable costs from day to day, the employees and so forth. And we still are not profitable, and it's expensive. And we're trying to keep the costs affordable for our families. And yet, if you were to get into this and say, oh, look at this incredible market and the great demand, and some entrepreneur would say, I found the great business to get into. Let's talk before you do that, okay? Because it is a very challenging market to be in. So we founded it as a community outreach, and it has been very successful. We are licensed for 81 children, and we have 97 on a waiting list, which basically means everyone could leave and we'd replace them tomorrow, all right? That doesn't mean they're expendable, all right? Don't misunderstand what I just said, okay? What I mean is the demand is off the charts. Expectant mothers generally will put their not yet born babies on the list about 6 months before their due date. It's like, get the ultrasound, call Melissa. You know, that seems to be how things go. We have 33 babies on the waiting list, and we're limited to 8. And can I tell you something? We only have 4 right now because it's incredibly hard to find qualified caregivers. And because of staffing, I'm licensed to have 8 spots. I can only have 4. And frankly, in the next 2 weeks, we might have a problem there because of staffing. And so it's a challenge for you out in your workforce. It's a major challenge for us as well. The baby ratio is 4 to 1. And I don't blame the state for that. Frankly, I mean, I'm looking around to the men in particular. Could you handle more than 4 babies at a time? I mean, that's probably actually an aggressive number, to be honest with you. And the people who handle that do very, very well. But that's not a formula for a profit margin. Do you understand what I mean? 4 to 1 is a very difficult ratio. There are also square footage limitations that are imposed and limit how many a center can do. And so the total care required for babies is a very big challenge. And of course, we have our own staffing challenges, and these are put on by regulatory mandates and education requirements. You understand, when you combine all the different regulators between accreditation, state licensing, and those expectations for state assistance and other things, it's a nightmare of overlapping and sometimes conflicting regulation. And so those that get into childcare leadership got into it because they love people and they love children in particular, and they're really wonderful classroom educators. And now they're hit with this kind of thing, which is like regulations and paperwork. I mean the paperwork and all of that. They say, this isn't what I got into this for, right? And so the regulatory environment is, can I say, extremely challenging. And we are talking to our state legislators and others about trying to help us. I mean, look at what's happened here, right? And so because of that, the staffing challenges, you understand you have to have either a bachelor's degree or an early childhood education associate's degree to be a lead teacher. To make, what did the median income say, $10.80 an hour? Who's going to do that, right? They say, wait a minute, that makes no sense. And so that is what has led to the staffing challenges. And then we have, obviously, pay and benefits expectations, which, as John and I have talked, we want to solve that issue. At Kitty Campus, we offer education benefits. We do offer our teachers and assistants healthcare benefits. And so we're actually kind of rare in that situation. But when you look at the hourly pay and you want to do better, I will need about $150,000 more a year in order to pay our teachers what we have committed to do under the program that we're about to talk about. And so that means new money has to come into the system. And so we appreciate so much our wonderful mayor, all right, and and our wonderful city council. My wife happens to sit on the city council, and our wonderful alder people. You have to say alder people now. And our city council and the different committees. I had no idea how much time and energy is spent and devoted and volunteered within this community. So we are very thankful for that, and we look forward to partnering with the community in this great effort. All right, who am I turning it back to? All right, come on ahead.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about what are some emerging best practices. What are some community solutions here? How can we solve this? And we have the picture of the three-legged stool up there because we need to move from a model where early care and education is funded 100% by families. It's not sustainable. There needs to be additional public support, and there probably needs to be some employer support if we want to ensure that there's going to be access to quality care. A couple of emerging bright spots. On the public level, our state has implemented a couple of things over the past 2 years, and these were both funded with some of the pandemic relief dollars. The first one is Childcare Count Stabilization Grants. So licensed childcare providers have been getting an extra payment which they can be using to bump up their staff salaries. And in most cases, it's like a bonus. So instead of, they still get their $11 an hour salary, but they can get a little bit of a pay bonus to start to get their pay closer to where it should be for individuals with bachelor's and associate's degree. That program is scheduled to end in 2023 here, and it's been a big game changer for our providers. So that's one that we're starting to talk about with our decision makers and our policy makers, that's a really important one that needs to stay. The second model is a program called Partner Up Grants, where our state partnered with businesses, and if a business would cover 25% of an employee's childcare, the state would cover 75% of it. So in the past 18 months or so, Wisconsin businesses have allocated about $3.6 million to this program, contributing to early care expenses, and the state has allocated $9 million. I'll share some examples about that, but here's another one that we want to be sure we're talking with our policymakers about. Here's a support that's really showing some promise that we'd love to see continue. There's some information at your tables about a federal tax credit that's available to employers to help recoup up to 25% of childcare expenses that they support. So if there's businesses or HR folks here that are thinking about doing that, take that and know that there's some tax support available to cover some of these expenses. Oh, okay. I'm going to use this one.
On the local side, Mayor McFarland mentioned the City of Watertown, Dodge County, and Jefferson County have both allocated Recovery Plan Act dollars to support childcare. So how is that being used? Several things are happening. One is a shared services network that's available to all of our childcare providers across both counties. It really is shared back office functions. There's a substitute pool. There's all sorts of resources for our child care providers so that they can spend their time with the children and less time on administrative costs. Our partners from the Wisconsin Early Childhood Association are here today. They offer that. It's showing wonderful outcomes, and again, there's some state funding that's going into that. So it's something we want to talk about so we can keep that service available. Startup business coaching. We now have 3 churches and 1 nonprofit who have engaged with us to say, we know that access to childcare is a problem. It may fit within our mission to be a community provider. Can you help us determine if this makes sense from a business case scenario? So we have 2 churches that are through that process have decided, yes, it makes sense. And they're getting some coaching so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel and that they can have policies and procedures handed to them. They can have some support with their budget, their staffing plan. So that has worked really well for us here in Dodge and Jefferson County. And the third big initiative is a new facility. So you might have seen that the foundation this summer purchased the former Bethesda corporate headquarters. That is being renovated right now and will open in June to provide a new child care center operated by the YMCA, which will serve 126 children. It'll also be the new home for Jefferson County Head Start, so about 90 children there. Facility enhancements will be needed as we increase capacity. Facility enhancements are extremely expensive. So we're going to focus today on what can we do to make sure we're stabilizing the day-to-day expenses of these childcare providers. So what role can businesses play? So this Partner Up program that the state has been implementing has had some really good results. And oftentimes we think, oh, those things are just for bigger employers. So I wanted to point out that this is actually great for smaller businesses who are more nimble. One of the participants in this plan is a company called Fitchburg Farms, which has 6 employees. And it was easy for them to implement to take some of that expense for their employees. And they have had employees that have come back to work where previously it didn't pay to work because their childcare was too expensive. There's another company in Wisconsin up in Manitowoc that has 200 employees, Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry. So their journey started a few years ago when they said, you know, we're going to provide $400 a month to help our employees cover their childcare expenses. They had such good results of that they've really upped their game. So they are now actively purchasing slots at childcare provider locations across their community so that they can have those slots reserved. And that has progressed to, it's worth their investment to build an on-site childcare center. So there's an example of a Wisconsin company that dabbled and got to the point that said, this works and we're all in and investing in it. What are some other smaller communities, perhaps about our size, doing? Well, in Anago, there's a new nonprofit center where employees can, again, purchase and reserve slots. One of their largest employers is purchasing those spots and guaranteeing them for their employees for $115 a week. In Marshfield, there's a partnership between the YMCA Child Care Center and the health system and some other employees. The employer's paying $5,000 per slot per year. If you do the math, it's just under $100 per week. And then they're pledging that if a slot goes empty, we're going to pay the $17,000 in revenue that center needs to hold that slot empty for their employees. Does that make sense in terms of how they're reserving a set number of slots so that they're always available for their employees? And then in Brillion, the Arians company also decided to open a childcare center for their employees and for the community. And I think they started out paying about 30% of the cost, and that wasn't enough to move the needle for families. They're now paying 50% of the cost, which in their labor market makes a difference, and it makes it worthwhile for mom or dad to come back to work because that childcare expense isn't so huge. So with that as a foundation, like these are some of the great things that are happening across Wisconsin. We used all that to frame up a pilot. What can we try here in Watertown to solve this challenge? And so I want to introduce John Lang, our YMCA CEO, who's going to talk about what we're excited to pilot this summer.
Thanks, Tina. So before I begin, I want to say that having been around the state over the last 40 years in various communities, I just want to reflect back to you folks in Watertown just how well this community comes together to solve problems. If you've lived here your whole life, you don't know that. But this community absolutely rallies to get things done, and it's been fun to be a part of it. So you've got a city government, you've got our county governments, you've got a foundation, you've got various nonprofit partners. This is very special, and to rally around the childcare needs, it's been fun to be a part of. So congratulations to all of you and all of us for being a part of something that actually is unique. I want to talk a little bit about the WISE journey. In October of 2017, we realized that the childcare desert absolutely existed, and we said, how might we actually enter and become part of that solution? We actually started to go to work on a site and ultimately that site fell through. At the same time, we were working on what we might do to build a new YMCA. All of us know that we have an old high school that is served as our YMCA, and that at some point we need to firmly plant the Y in the ground. Original estimates had us replacing the old high school, building a new pool, and then adding a child care center. And we were 15 days from recommending that to our board of directors when COVID hit. And so when we were looking beyond 2020 to the future, all of a sudden our board was closing the YMCA, and we were thinking, how might we survive 2020? And I have to tell you what a blessing that was. It was an absolute blessing, because during that time we did the child care study. During that time, Tina called and said, you know, we have to do our due diligence and go look at the Bethesda site because their corporate headquarters is really downsizing. And I tell this story, but I was like, oh, one more site. I've looked at every site in the community. I don't want to go look at another site. And seriously, by the time we got to that middle floor in Bethesda, this vision of how we might change the game kind of just seeded in me. And then it's like, can we build a new Y here as well? All of a sudden, what was unclear became really, really clear, and that was middle of 2021. So by all of a sudden, now here we are in 2023, right? But it did absolutely change the game for us and give us an opportunity maybe to do something really, really different, and to take that third phase previously contemplated and make it a first. The last thing that happened is this: we all knew childcare was important, and we all knew that early childhood education was important, and now we all know that childcare is an absolute infrastructure to workforce. I mean, we kind of knew that, but boy, that pandemic really proved that out for us. Is that, I mean, employers, we have to figure out how to do this differently, because we're having problems getting and retaining employees. So we're months away from actually opening this pilot, and here we go. Our main objectives is we knew we needed more childcare. We wanted to increase the infant and toddler openings. We have 4 right now, 4 babies. We really knew that infant and toddler care was absolutely critical to the infrastructure of childcare. We wanted to increase pay and benefits for early childhood education professionals and have this be a profession as opposed to a job. And then finally, we wanted to really pilot this idea of employee-sponsored care. So there are a lot of things that got baked into what we're presenting as a pilot. The Bethesda site serves as our home, and it'll serve as the future home of the YMCA. The middle floor will include 126 slots of childcare and the Head Start program. And the beauty of that is that all the back office stuff will be joined. So we'll build a partnership with those Head Start families, and we'll have 200 families coming in and out of this center beginning end of this summer. On your tables is the beginning of our flyer. I'm going to say prototype, I'm going to say pilot. We're not completely done with this, but we're pretty darn close. I would have loved to announce our rates today, but we really have been working with employers on that part of it, so we're not at that place either. But if you scan the QR code in here, it'll take you to an interest form that'll actually get you signed up and set up to be a part of our child care center. So we're really on our way to making this a reality. I want to talk specifically about kind of the third piece of this, which is employer-sponsored care. You heard about one company that was actually doing participation. In other words, we're doing $50 a week or $100 a week to help subsidize the cost of care for families. You heard about another company that was actually reserving slots of care. So if that slot was open, the company actually reserved the slot until such time as they could fill it. So they don't have to worry about prioritization and a full center and their people not getting in. As we look to the future, we're going to pilot both of those. So employers can actually decide if they want to be part of a participation where we're going to do $100 a week for 10 of our employees, or a reservation where we're going to do $100 a week for our 10 employees, but if we only have 8 employees, we're going to pay the additional amount to reserve those slots. Both of those are going to be offerings that we'll have in the community. I want to step back just a second. Part of this for us, when we talk about our commitments of really changing the game with infant and toddler slots, with childcare really being a professional, pay and benefits, we'll pay $15 an hour for our assistant teachers, $17 an hour for our teachers. We have a 55% childcare stipend, so people can actually be a part of our center staff and also get a child care benefit. We pay retirement, we'll pay health insurance. The idea is really to wrap these employees in this as a professional model, almost to the extent of a full paid teacher salary. It starts to change the game. I want to underscore Partner Up. Partner Up is part of the proposal coming forward in the legislature. What we heard when we sat down with our legislators, we probably had 100 people in the room, they've heard from us childcare folks. They know what we know about running the business. Who they haven't heard from is business and industry. They haven't heard that you think this is a critical need for our community. And I think the State Partner Up program is a beautiful way to do this. In other words, you're in the game and they're going to subsidize pretty dramatically. And so right now it's part of a proposal, the budget proposal. You can help us with advocacy, making that part of the plan, and you can help yourself and help your employees as well. Last thing is outright contributions. We're as Matt said, we're a larger nonprofit institution, and because of that, we're able to absorb a lot of those overhead costs that a smaller organization wouldn't be able to have. It's a way to actually have us enter this business. What we know is that those first 5 years of life are critical to brain development. So we can talk about infrastructure, we can talk about caring for kids, but we also want to make sure we're educating our kids. All of that is part of what you can provide. I don't know that you can see that, but this is my pro forma. And what it shows is revenue and expense, and the green line shows 1.4 million in total revenues and 1.41 in total expenses, a $22,000 loss just in direct costs when we're fully operational. You add the rest of the story and it's a negative $225,000. So if you add overhead and depreciation, negative $225,000. So if you were pricing your business model and you were not taking account all those other costs, you would be saying, what are we doing, right? Well, this is where we've been saying, you know what, this is our mission work. If we can cover direct costs, we're going to be a part of this. The better and bolder number is this, we believe we can assume monthly revenues of about $217 per week. Our costs are $251 a week. Taking Tina's cost of care model, basically employees should be funding about 7% of a family of $75,000. That's about $100 a week. And if our cost is $250 a week, it leaves a shortage. And that's where this opportunity of working with employers makes some sense. Emily had talked about the fact that the city's ARPA dollars are going to support this. What we're going to do is we're going to take and really work with employers who want to be a part of this program and provide funding. Say you're providing $50 a week for your employees. The city's going to match that with their ARPA dollars at $50 a week. So we're actually going to take employers who are helping, we're going to take government who is going to help, and the families to try and change the game here and turn the curve. If we're paying $15 to $17 an hour, we're doubling the number of infant and toddlers. We've got to change this game. It's got to be disruptive, and we need your help to do that. And that ultimately brings me to my last slide, which is basically the same equation. The state has a different cost than we've got. I mean, when the state has gone and done this survey around Wisconsin, what they're realizing is total cost is about $275 a week. And so the Partner Up program actually funds to that $275 a week. Our costs are $250 a week. We're getting a little over $200 a week when we start. That's the other side of it, is what can families actually afford? So this is a pilot. The providers that'll be involved, Maranatha and the Y in this first year, are saying, we're going to try and change this game. We want to help a community develop a robust and stable child care system. We're going to start in the first year. Every employer who's a part of the pilot will be part of a quarterly advisory board. We will work to study. We will work to change. We will work to modify. Those of you that have been in the innovation cycle understand that it's messy, and it happens over time, and so it'll be iterative. We're going to ask that the CEOs from the various companies are at least engaged on an annual basis, because we want to walk through what this is actually costing, and it'll be an open book exercise. The intent is to change the game. We've got to change the game, or we're not going to have early childhood education in the way that we know it, and you're not going to have workers. So it's all a part of that. I want to turn it back over to Tina to wrap up.
So we have a great community who's accomplished some pretty great things. And we also have this great challenge in front of us that really can only be solved by many sectors working together. And so I'm grateful to our local municipalities who've identified this as a challenge and have allocated resources. I'm grateful to our nonprofit organizations who've said this is a community need. We need to step up and lead with this from mission, even though it might not be the financially best thing to do for our organizations. I'm grateful to the faith-based organizations in the greater region that are saying, should we be a provider of this? Childcare is essential for families, and it's essential for our community. So this is something that we are all in together. And so before we take some question and answers, we just want to be really clear that there's 4 ways you can get involved. And at your table, we actually have cards, and we'd like you to think about, what does this mean for me? How might I get involved? And the ladies are going to go around. If you need a card, just raise your hand. Easiest way to get involved is to talk to our local policymakers, talk to our state policymakers. There were several great things piloted over the last couple of years funded by pandemic dollars. There's a lot of conversations about what's going to be in the state government to support early care and education. And if you are willing, we can get you those talking points when the time is right, and you can pick up the phone or send an email to your legislatures. The second option is there's a statewide group called Raising Wisconsin that will be having an advocacy day in Madison on April 5th. John mentioned that our policymakers have not heard from employers and business leaders. So you can bet there'll be a whole lot of child care providers on August 5th. We need our business leaders to come along, and we will make that easy for you if you're willing to give part of a day. The third option is to consider employer-sponsored care. So it's an opportunity for you to reserve slots so that you can recruit and retain employees. You can lower the cost of childcare for your employees, and you can help craft this solution. So John mentioned there'll be an advisory board. We're not going to get this right the first time. It's a pilot for a reason, and it will be tweaked. And so we're looking for a few good community leaders willing to be part of that process and help us evolve this together. So with that, we want to pause, and my fellow speakers are going to come on up. And what questions do you have about access to childcare or some of the solutions that we're looking to pilot? Yes.
I can probably talk really loud.
Okay.
It's probably okay. My question is about the reserved spots. In my mind, if a spot is reserved, that means someone else can't use it. So with the limited space available, what happens if, these employers have these spots reserved and people can't use them in the meantime? In 6 months of how's that going to work?
Yeah, so great question. One of the things I didn't mention is we will maintain 30% of our slots open for general community access as well. Honestly, our concern is that we're going to be too full too quickly, not empty too long. But that, I mean, in essence, you're explaining exactly what will happen is these 10 spots will be reserved and won't be available for care otherwise, but there's an employer peace of mind that says, you know what, this partnership that we have, I'm paying for it and I've got these spots available. And that's actually the Marshfield model. That's what they've done in Marshfield. So
I would say too, another facet of that would be prioritization on the waiting list rather than reservation of the spot. So that's more the model that Kitty Campus is analyzing and considering. So with 98 people on a waiting list, it kind of bumps you up the line if your employer is contributing to keep that spot sort of for them when it does come open. And there's a whole lot of nuance that goes into this as to what comes open and what you need. If I have an opening in the 4-year-old room and you have a baby, that's not going to work. So it's a very complex thing when it comes to practice versus what we can sort of articulate more generally.
yes.
Yeah, so Dodge County, a group of partners from Dodge County, was actually one of the first communities in Wisconsin, one of 10 communities for something called the Dream Up Grant Program, to design a strategic plan for increasing your access to childcare. And that group is really focusing on workforce. And so they're looking at what's happening in our high schools, how are we informing high school students about career opportunities and connecting them to jobs, even while they're in high school. And our technical college systems has been doing a great job. Madison College, right now in 2023, the classes that you need to become a certified teacher are free. And guess what? They filled up. So the state and other partners are throwing resources at making it really easy for those that might be young people or those interested in a career change to get the qualifications to do that. That's a great question. That's our biggest worry. That is, how do we make sure we have great teachers for our children?
And I'll just add, I don't know if we had it in this slide, but we talk about it all the time. There is a demographic of people staying at home. So in creating more slots, we are able to bring those people back into the workforce. And I just want to acknowledge what we're proposing and producing is not going to solve that problem or that problem in totality. But what we're trying to do is strike a balance between positively affecting the outcome of kids so that in the long run, they're able to enter into your businesses and be a part of your workforce. So we're not going to strike it 10 out of 10 on every single issue, but right now we're at 0 out of 10 on all of them. So I think what we'll do is 0 is probably critical, but I think what we're proposing is a gradual evolution of change versus an instant and impactful perfect solution. And we had to get comfortable with that.
Well, and the last piece is we want to affect retention just as much as recruitment. And this will help to do that. Other questions?
I'm the elected official here, so I'll do this. I just want to tell you all, we stood, where's Mayor Gluen? Well, in this capacity, where is she? Mayor Gluen is the mayor of Beaver Dam. A few months ago, she and I, through the work of many of the community partners up here, stood in a room in Beaver Dam with childcare providers and businesses, people from this community that showed up and talked to Representative Bourne, who's the co-chair of Joint Finance, Senator Jagler, who's our senator here, and we talked to them about childcare and how it affected workforce. So when Tina or John or Matt say, please talk to your legislators, they mean it, and this is why. I talked to Representative Bourne after, and for those of you not in government, he controls the dollars. The governor proposes a budget, and then Joint Finance massages that budget, and then that is what we all work with over time. And he said to me, that's the first time anyone's ever said that childcare is workforce, that childcare is economic development. And I've worked with plenty of legislators over my years, and I think it was the first time that clicked in that manner for him and for our senator. And it's because they heard from Johnsonville. They heard from the cheese man in Reeseville. Specialty cheese, thank you. They heard from the other gentleman who's making his own, the pizza guy. Richelieu Foods, right. They aren't in Watertown. I only worry about you all, and not them. Unless they want to come here, of course, but I wouldn't do that to Becky. But the point is, I can stand there all day, and so can our providers, but there is nothing as authentic as you saying to them, we're pushing all in, and we're pushing in because it will allow me to hire that executive I can't hire. It will allow me to bring in that doctor I've been unable to bring in. So the model we're proposing to you all isn't going to solve, if I'm you, I'm like, how do I do this for 200 people? Pick the people in your organization that you have the most difficult time recruiting and allocate this benefit to those folks. Or not. I mean, it's up to you. But that's the options that you have in participation with us.
The other thing I'll say is that the models so far that we've had have been employer by employer by employer. This is a community-based model, and I would love nothing more than to say, Watertown is one of these communities where childcare is an absolute critical part of how we work with our workforce, and have that be a competitive advantage for our community because it's community-based. All right.
I might just close us with this graph up here. So we have a trend of provider closures, and doing nothing is not an option. So Emily articulated it better, but there is no one perfect solution, and we're just looking for people to roll up their sleeves and find the best solution for our community, for our kids, for our workforce, and for our families. So thank you so much for being here for this important discussion. We would love it if you would fill out those cards sharing how you'd like to get involved and leave those at your table. We'll also be sending out an email survey too, so that if you want to be part of this, we'd love to have you. So thank you. Is Steve going to close us out?
Okay, two last things. Jim Leaf and ITU Absorb Tech is the sponsor of our breakfast this year. So if you have an opportunity to say hello to Jim, or more importantly, use his business, that would be great. He's out of New Berlin. He couldn't be with us today. I think he's down south playing golf, and I'm jealous. February 15th is the next breakfast. It's called Roadmap to Resources, Leveraging Incentives to Help Our Communities and Businesses Succeed. Deb Reinbold is with us. She's the Thrive Economic Development CEO, president, something. I don't know. Ben, what'd you call her? Yeah, it's on the day. So she'll be with us February 15th. We'd love to have you there. And again, remember our Leader to Leader conference coming up in March. The information's at the table. Have a great day.